In the land where I was born, there are now women seeking justice. Justice for birth mothers. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
Thank you for tuning into Justice for Birth Mothers. My name is Anna Kavanagh, co-founder and convener to the Alliance of Birth Mothers Campaigning for Justice, Ireland's largest non-Tusla funded group advocating on behalf of birth mothers in difficulty with Tusla, the Gardai and the family court. The mothers that we support are bound by the in-camera rule, which means they could be jailed for speaking outside the family court about what's happening to them. To overcome the silencing of these birth mothers and give them a voice, I interviewed 20 of them that I've personally come to know since our group was formed in 2019. They volunteered to describe their experiences in great detail to let the world know about the ongoing state abuse of mothers and children in Ireland. The voices you're about to hear are the voices of the women who offered to read the transcripts of what was said to me. I want to warn you in advance that you will probably be disturbed by what you're about to hear. This podcast looks at guardian ad litems, commonly known as GALs. And if you are fortunate enough never to have been near a family law court, you probably haven't a clue what a guardian ad litem is. Here to tell us more about GALs is Michelle Monaghan, one of the researchers with the Alliance of Birth Mothers Campaigning for Justice.
A guardian ad litem, or GAL, G-A-L for short, is appointed by order of the court, where Tusla takes an application to a court to have a supervision order placed on a family, or an interim care order on a child, or a full care order on a child under the 1991 Child Care Act. The GAL advises the court on the best interests of the child and conveys the views of the child to the court. The GAL prepares a report each time there's a sitting of the case in the court. Their reports are kept in the courthouse, and the GAL arrives to the court with their own legal representation. A review of the administration of civil justice, headed by former High Court President Peter Kelly, was published in December 2020 and included more than 90 recommendations. In May 2022, Minister for Justice Helen McEntee published an implementation plan for some of the recommendations in the Kelly Review, which she said would be the most significant reform to civil law in the history of our state. Among the recommendations to be implemented is the standardisation of arrangements for naming and vetting the suitability of guardian ad litems who act on behalf of a child in litigation. Despite having an in-house legal team, Tusla's annual report for 2022 shows it paid $38.9 million for GAL and legal services, up from $30.6 million in 2021. On October the 4th, it was announced that Anthony Douglas has been appointed by Minister Roderick O'Gorman to work on preparations for the planned guardian ad litem national service. Douglas is a former chief executive of CAFCAS, the Child and Family Court Advisory and Support Service, which represented children in family court cases in England. He was awarded a CBE in 2008 for his work in family justice and adoption. It's expected that reform of the model will provide for universal access to a GAL for all children involved in a childcare proceeding. The Childcare Amendment Act of July 2022 provides for reform and creates a presumption in favour of an appointment of a GAL in a childcare proceeding before the District Court and a mandatory appointment in special care cases before the High Court. Other provisions in the 2022 Act is that the Minister can send an officer to the in-camera proceeding and he can have access to the in-camera reports of the proceedings. And also another provision of the Act is to regulate the GAL system. At present, GALs are not regulated. The Dáil's Public Accounts Committee was told in January 2017 that the average income for guardian ad litems in 2016 was €126,000, with one case involving a payment of €240,000. The committee was told Tusla paid a total of $8.2 million to the 65 guardian ad litems operating in the state in 2016. Just over $3.8 million went to Bernardo's Beacon service, the largest provider of GAL services. Anthony Douglas said in a statement, "I am very pleased to be working in the department on this project. Gals play a vital, pivotal role in making sure each child in care has the best possible chance of the best possible future. I will work collaboratively and inclusively with all stakeholders to ensure that I can help create the conditions of future success for the new service.
Give the mothers back their children. Give the children back to the mother. Justice for birth mothers. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
The first mother's voice that we hear in this podcast is Maeve. Maeve's difficulties with Tusla and the Gardai began when she reported that her daughter had been sexually abused by her father. This resulted in her children temporarily being taken into care.
I had a very positive experience with my gal. I would say more than positive. This woman has been a huge support to me and my children. In court, the gal that I was appointed was not the one that Tusla wanted. The judge did not want Tusla's suggestion. She wanted somebody that she knew from when she practiced as a solicitor. I'm still in contact with that person, not in no official way as such, but I update her on different things. She's astonished at what goes on, and she's been educated about the family court. It's just that we really hit it off and she was really the voice of my children. I've never been allowed to see her report. After I got the children out of care, the first thing I said to the judge in the box was, "Thank you for appointing that gal." I now know that it's very rare to get a gal that is really the voice of the children. I believe that if I did not have that particular gal, my children wouldn't be here today at home with me.
Ireland, Mother Ireland, let not the sins of the father be visited on these children. Justice for birth mothers, oh Lord, hear my prayer.
Tusla used the mental health difficulties of Roseanne's partner to take her children into care. And even after the relationship with her partner ended, Tusla refused to return her children home to her, and she has waged a 9-year battle to bring them home. Recently, Roseanne gave an interview to Conor Gallagher of the Irish Times, where she has recently discovered that a false allegation of sexual abuse was made against her father. And this is one of the reasons why Tusla was refusing to return her children home to her. Tusla has now apologised for that false allegation.
When I was first in court, in the first couple of weeks, the court appointed a guardian ad litem. I found her to be, at first, she was very kind. She said she was going to be the voice for the kids. So obviously she was asking the kids what their wishes were. Of course, the children were saying they wanted to come home, and she said to them, well, you have to stay where you are just for the moment till all these assessments are carried out. And they do assessments. They come out and check the house. The house was fine. The gal was a waste of time, really, because she never acted on anything. In the long run, I found the guardian ad litem wasn't the children's voice. She was actually taking away the children's voice. The children should be allowed to have their own voice. They don't need anyone to speak for them. She never adhered to my children's wishes. When I got my file under freedom of information, I was devastated when I read that one of my daughters said she wanted to die because she wasn't allowed home. Some of the stuff I read is just so upsetting. The guardian ad litem ignored it. She dragged it out until the kids got used to where they were. She said when I first met her, and I have this on record, she said my kids shouldn't even be in care because there was no drugs and no alcohol. It was just domestic violence. There was no attempt to allow the children to come home, even though they were crying to come home. In the end, she recommended that the children were better off staying where they were because they were settled in their placements.
Motherhood is hard, support the mother and the child together. Do not tear this love asunder. Support, respect the mother. Justice for birth mothers. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
Tammy is another mother who was a victim of domestic violence, and this was used also by Tusla as an excuse to remove her children from her. Tammy has spent the last decade trying to get her children home.
When I think about gals, I get angry because the only way to describe them is they're vicious. Vicious. They come in all nice at the start, pretending to be your friend, laughing and joking. They bring your kids out for dinner and bring them presents. They actually put you into a false sense of security. And then when they go to court, you should hear the lies. To be honest, they're a waste of money. Whatever Tusla wants the gals, will give it to them. It's all about money. There's huge money in it. Some of them were social workers to begin with. There was one gal, she told me that my children would be coming home because I was no longer in a violent relationship and I had the support of my mother. I was over the moon. Finally, I was on top of the world. And when we had the next court hearing 3 weeks later, she told the judge I shouldn't get my children back. She said in court I was likely to get into another domestic violent relationship. That's my experience of gals.
Look into your mother's face. No one else can take her place. Justice for birth mothers. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
Lucy developed a dependency on alcohol after her son was killed in an accident. She went to Tusla looking for help, and when she got her life back in order again, her daughter was returned home to her. Sometime later, Lucy had a slip, and again she went to Tusla looking for help. This time it was a completely different story. She battled for 3.5 years to get her child home.
Gals are just a joke, an absolute joke. They're paid by Tusla. I can't understand how someone who has worked as a social worker in the same office as the social worker is dealing with you for years. Then they can turn around and call themselves a gal and say that they are independent. They side with Tusla all the time. And what really struck me with the gals was that they put in their reports at the last minute. They would never approach you for the information. They get their information from social workers. So they never got a rounded opinion. I have to say, at the very end, when they were going to try and get a full care order, my gal stepped in and wouldn't support them. I think she knew that I was getting better, and I was getting stronger, and I was paying for very good legal representation, and so she didn't want to get into any kind of trouble. Up to that point, she had been siding with the social workers all the way. She knew I was probably going to take a court order against them, and I don't think she wanted to be linked with it. So in the end, the very, very end, she ended up coming good and wouldn't support the care order application. I heard on the grapevine that she told the social workers that she would not be supporting them when they were looking for a full care order. So she came good. She supported me in the end. But that's very, very rare for that to happen. Very rare. I know it's rare from talking to other women in similar situations to mine. They say it's about the child, but it's never about the child. It's about power. It's about money.
One song you don't want to hear is the cry of the mother and her child taken from her. Justice for birth mothers. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
Clara came to Ireland after she testified against a dangerous criminal in her neighbourhood, and she was very concerned about her safety. She rented a home in a very isolated rural part of Ireland, and shortly after she began living there, the Gardai arrived at her home looking for passports. This was her first interaction with the Gardai, and subsequently the Gardai on 3 separate occasions removed her children. On the first occasion, they wrongfully arrested her and took the children into care. The judge in the case ordered that the children be returned to her immediately. Clara has undergone more than a decade of harassment from the Gardai, and she still hasn't got her children reunited with her.
Gals, they're just social workers that are registered with Crew, and they might as well work for Tusla because they didn't listen to one thing I had to say. They are social workers who act as a guardian ad litem. The judge does listen to them. I read out the proof of my daughter's own word in writing that contradicted what she was telling the judge, and the judge just listened to her. You have no say. Your children's voice isn't heard. The children's voices aren't heard. How this guardian ad litem, who was a registered social worker, is independent is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And they're paid by Tusla. They're registered as a social worker in the same way as Tusla social workers are. But that's not independent. That's just another social worker helping Tusla to keep the children. And they have a solicitor to help them. So that's 2 solicitors acting as a team against the family.
In 2014, the legal firm established by former Minister for Justice Alan Shatter received over €660,000 in fees to represent gals in court, making them the highest earners from gal fees that year. In December 2018, Conor Deegan reported in the Irish Examiner that Judge Patrick Durcan presided over the family law court in Ennis, blasted Tusla, saying they were costing the state a small fortune in legal and gal fees. A case before him involved a 5-year-old child in care under an interim care order. Judge Durcan pointed out that there were 4 solicitors in court representing various parties in the case, along with a guardian ad litem employed to provide an independent voice to the 5-year-old child. Looking down at the solicitors representing the various parties, Judge Durcan said, "It is unreal what I see before my eyes. Unreal." In the case, Tusla was represented by 1 solicitor, with the parents of the 5-year-old boy separately represented by a solicitor each. In addition, the gal was represented by a 4th solicitor. Judge Durcan said, "There is an intolerable waste of fees paid to legal personnel and an intolerable waste of fees paid to the guardian ad litem turning up today for no purpose." Judge Durcan said that he was making his comment as someone who practiced as a solicitor for 39 years and spent 30 of those years in childcare cases representing the HSE and health boards. The Childcare Law Reporting Project has reported in the past that gals were appointed in 53% of cases involving children in state care. A briefing document prepared by Tusla for the Dáil Public Accounts Committee in October 2022 shows €12.3 million was spent on gals in the first 9 months of the year, of which €5.6 million went to pay lawyers. In 2021, the total for the year spent on gals was €14 million, including €6.1 million on legal fees. The committee was told that Tusla pays a professional rate of €125 per hour to gals plus travelling expenses. The briefing document says Tusla does not have a role in selection, performance, appraisal or direction of a gal regarding the hours required in the case. For the 2,251 children that had a gal in September 2022, the average cost worked out at €5,043 per case, ranging from €127 up to €10,800 for a complex case. Tusla funds the gal service. The Comptroller and Auditor General has noted the conflict of interest whereby Tusla is paying the gal in cases where Tusla is also a party in the legal proceedings. Tusla said in the briefing document to the Public Accounts Committee that it was doing everything in its power to mitigate against this conflict of interest.
Justice for Birth Mothers is a co-production between the Alliance of Birth Mothers Campaigning for Justice and 𝑀 Media. The podcast series received no funding and is made possible by a team of volunteers. Pseudonames have been used to protect the identities of the birth mothers. We're grateful to these mothers who shared their stories to highlight the ongoing state abuse of mothers by Tusla, some Gardai and the family court system. Thanks also to the ladies who read the transcripts, which were very difficult for them given the harrowing stories. Thank you for listening, and please share this podcast with your family, friends and contacts. The next podcast deals with the Gardai. Until next time, 𝐵𝑖𝑟𝑡ℎ 𝑀𝑜𝑡ℎ𝑒𝑟𝑠.
In the land where I was born, there are now women seeking justice. Justice for birth mothers, oh Lord, hear